Hi folks, welcome back to the next episode of The Main Scoop. I'm Greg Lotko, joined by my co-host Dan Newman here.
Good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you in person.
Welcome back.
All right, so today we're talking about modernization. And it's funny, when I talk to people about this, some people think, oh, you got to make something modern or modernize it and then you're done, you're there, right? You just do it once. And I think they forget the whole idea that once you're there, that becomes the status quo and time marches on, things get developed. It happens.
Imagine if fashion was like that. You know, it's just finished. We're done.
It is for me. I'm still living in the 80s, but yeah, I agree. Fashion always changes. There's always something new. There's the new look.
Never finished.
But there's function, right? More than fashion.
Technology transformation never finishes. It never stops. We get to a point and it's the new thing. We go to large models and then we go to
Small
even
models.
bigger models. And then now we're going back down to small models.
Right.
Actually, everything in tech's always like an accordion. It gets, you know, it's client, then it's edge, then it's client, then it's data set. You know what I mean?
I think that's been like my life. So modernization, we always bring a guest in to have this conversation to keep it real. So I'm delighted to tell you today we have Sheree Britt joining us from TD. She's probably a little nervous right now after hearing that banner, but tell us a bit about your role at TD, and you can get into what your thoughts are on modernization.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I am the head of the mainframe practice at TD, and my role is centered around three pillars: practice excellence, talent acceleration, and community of interest. So throughout those three key things, we're able to modernize, uplift our talent, and also accelerate on our modernization journey.
So Sheree, I want to make sure you get a little chance for a humble brag here. I see you were the recent recipient of the 2024 DevOps Dozen Award for DevOps Enterprise Leaders of the Year. Talk a little bit about the award, what that represents and what that meant to you.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that and honored to receive that award. I was thinking back as to, you know, how I got here as an engineer and also as a leader. And one of the things that has always stuck with me with attending the HBCU that I did, which is FAMU, is excellence with caring. So as I started my career as an engineer, I always wanted to make sure that although we have a high bar, that we still consider the people and how that's important for them. So when I was crafting what I wanted, the mainframe place to be at TD, I wanted it to be the place that people wanted to gravitate towards and also wanted to deliver and create that great experience for them. So,
well, congratulations, Sheree. That's fantastic. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about culture. I'm also really glad, though, that you're talking about DevOps, because when we talk about modernization, I mean, one of the big parts of this is figuring out how to implement those DevOps strategies, because it's never just mainframe. Like, you have the mainframe practice, but it's hybrid now, right? It's all the enterprises have hybrid applications. So you got to come up with a DevOps strategy. You got to have policies in place. You got to pick the right tools. Kind of how are you thinking about modern DevOps to be able to accomplish all of those things?
So people is always first, because you can get really great tools. And I like to talk about the modern mainframer. So as an engineer, what do you need to learn in order to adapt? What is it that you need to add to your toolbox, because you're already good at your craft? So what else can you add to that? And so as we go down the modern mainframer path, we talk about how do we automate, how do we build pipelines? What does an engineer need to understand so that they can also help, even when you make a cloud journey? What does a mainframe engineer know that's different from a distributed engineer that will help it be successful? So we focus on those key things for that.
I like that a lot.
developer.
I think when we talk about modernization, again, like we were talking about people thinking it's the goal, they think it is just about the outcome. It's the what you create, but it's also the how you do it and the people and getting them engaged with it as well.
I figured you'd really like the modern mainframer.
I do. I like the modern
You could
mainframe.
play with.
Yeah. Am I missing something?
No, I just figured I like how she sort of brought that to light. You know,
It's funny. If I think about it, right? So you think about the modern mainframer. I think throughout this long history on this platform, we've had modern mainframers.
Yeah.
It's continued to evolve as new tools and new capabilities, whether it be technologies, AI, OS, Linux to the platform, DevOps paradigms. We've continued to modernize interacting with the platform as well as what you're capable of doing on the platform. So the modern mainframer is whatever it is today. And there were modern mainframers 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. That's why this platform has survived and thrived, because we're always pushing it forward to the next level.
No, it absolutely is. And I mean, one of the things, sure, I'd be super interested in hearing from you is sort of about modern tools, okay? Because you kind of started going into that a little bit, but so modern mainframer, right? To someone that maybe doesn't have the same provenance in mainframing as you two, like me, for instance, right? That does look a little bit more broadly at the IT space, might kind of almost see that as a diametrically opposed nomenclature. You disagree, but I'm saying you see how the industry does that to it. The point is actually what's happening is these hybrid enterprises need to think in a very forward way about how to evolve, develop, build on the mainframe. Which is basically means next generation development teams. How are you kind of leading that charge at TD?
Yeah, so we actually have a really good program where we have a pipeline of engineers that come in. And one of the first things they asked me to do was talk to the team about mainframe. So I had to think really very clearly, like, how would I communicate to them why they should join this team? Why should they care about mainframe? And I was thinking about all of mainframe across everything we use. So depending on the industry that you're in, especially in banking and financial services, I have a long career there. So it's pretty much running banks. Everything they interact with that they may not be aware, whether it's shopping or travel, that sort of thing. And then telling them, you want a differentiated skill? You know what your peers know. Do you want to have something that will differentiate you and give you longevity? And anytime you have a new engineer come into a mainframe shop and see long careers, that's exciting to them to know that they can have longevity within their space. They're really excited about that.
So our goal with technology is always to create the next best thing, the capability for our team to use internally or for our customers or whatever. And I think all too often people get fixated on this capability or this specific technology. And I love that you started it with the people. How do you attract them? How do you keep them interested? How do you keep them engaged? So there's a cultural change that's got to go on. So can you expand a little bit more on that, around, modernizing the DevOps process and what you're doing, where maybe you were doing it across other areas in TD, but you brought it to the mainframe with commonality? How do you drive that cultural change?
Yeah, so culture, you think about, you have to have a growth mindset. And then I guess its cousin is agility. So you need those two things, because as you're growing and learning, and I've been an engineer for a long time. I'm sure you also, we've learned new things. We've stood the test of time. So we know it can be done. So it's not about who can learn. It's about how you create an environment where people can actually flourish. So that's what we're really focused on. And then when we get to agility, how do we pivot? So when we start on some of these tools, sometimes we have to make a shift because maybe it's going to take us a little longer. We built these platforms for a very long time. They're very complex, they're intricate, and they're sophisticated. So we need to take our time to go through that, and we need to, as leaders, also be able to help our teams manage through that.
It's interesting when she mentions that, Greg, when we're running our companies, right, we run our organizations, the tech is often not the change that's actually hardest to find, hardest to even implement. It's always hard to get the buy-in. It's the culture, it's getting the people. And so, I'd be interested, Sheree, as you implement these things, what are the other challenges that arise? Like in AI, for instance, we're finding overwhelmingly that companies aren't lacking access to tools, but they're struggling to actually get it implemented. Are you still seeing that same thing where you're running into kind of the cultural wall to get people to buy in and implement the newest tools?
Right, so I would refer to it as chaos.
Chaos, I like that.
So I think I've always tried to be a very calm leader. So even if there's a lot of chaos happening around, my team won't know it because you want to keep them focused on the things that are the most important. You don't want to have distractions because people will get discouraged. So when you say something's coming, like I have said, don't worry, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Yes, it's coming for sure. You want to still be able to reinforce and give them an opportunity to work on that and then keep the chaos down. Create environments where people can celebrate the small wins. We talk about that a lot. So, how do you celebrate people and have them actually have that momentum? And when you get that momentum, then you go fast so that you can't be stopped.
It's funny, I always think of the duck on the pond, right? As leaders, we know that we always have different things coming at us, but you develop this confidence of you may not know exactly how we're going to solve or get through this crisis, but you know that you've got the right team and the capabilities around you. So one of our roles as a leader is to be the duck on the pond, bobbing on the top of the surface, and you have no idea if under the water we're paddling like crazy to stay where we are or just to stay afloat. But also thinking about this leadership going for the long term, we talked a bit about it in the opening. Modernization is not a point that you get to. So when you're working with the team and you're saying, hey, here's the things we're going to do and we're going to modernize, how do you keep them inspired and going when you're never done?
Organized chaos.
Well, and it's constant change, constant evolution.
Yes. So I mentioned before, these systems are sophisticated. They're big. They're intricate. And even as an engineer, I mean, I've had to evolve my own career. So I think you use that as an example to keep people. I could learn whatever. When I was placed into a team of leading distributed and mainframe, I didn't know it. And I quickly went to learn because I wanted to sit side by side with those engineers to be able to help them solve problems. And I think they appreciated that and they understood. And then you also build trust. So you have to absolutely put yourself in the shoes of the engineers. You can't get too far removed from what people are doing and what their challenges are. And then you let them bring their voices forward to help through that journey.
I agree. It's modeling the behavior. So when you show that you don't necessarily know everything, that you're willing to learn, that you're willing to listen, it inspires them to go outside of their comfort zone and do the same.
Yes, and we also see our, distributor, modern cloud, whatever we refer to them as these days, saying, what are you guys doing over there in mainframe? I think I want to learn something on the mainframe. Yes, come learn over here.
Well, these things are so interdependent, right? I mean, these organizations,
Nothing exists in isolation today.
right. But I'm saying, like, if you actually look at like the stitching of a infrastructure of a modern financial institution, the role you're in, they need someone driving, innovating, and doing a role like it. It may not be, and there's only one you, but something like that. And then, of course, they're trying to thread that across a lot of new, different infrastructures. They're trying to get things, out to the edges, onto devices. They're trying to figure out, where does public cloud fit into this? Where does hybrid? And then, of course, we've found that there's just absolutely no escaping the criticality of a mainframe because nothing can handle transactions at the volume like that. That's just one thing, right? I mean, that's just one
the reality of you're doing important work for the business, and modernization doesn't mean stop this and abruptly go in another direction or lose the capabilities and the abilities that you've already delivered to your customers and your organization. It's a modernizing evolution, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So as I kind of heard you start to allude to it, like pulling the teams in to come learn what you're doing. You jump in across the aisle, learning what the teams that you're collaborating with are doing, but kind of like, how do you envision sort of driving forward at this DevOps? I like to call it like a DevOps mindset, because it feels like that's kind of what's needed. How do you drive it across the organization and, of course, across those functions? And what are some of those key characteristics that you're seeing that's helping TD be so successful?
Yeah, we've had a really good, a couple of successes that we've been able to deliver. So we start with innovation days with one of our platform partners. And when you have an innovation sprint, we really focus the time for people to understand. And we have those working sessions and we keep that going. And they do a show and tell. and then they go away and they come back sometime after, and then they're able to start implementing it. So what we want to make sure we do, we don't just want to just be introducing new tech that you could never deploy, because
So it's have something real or meaningful to do with it while you're learning about it versus it just being
yes,
an academic experience.
yes. And then what we have found is that the experienced engineers, when people have said they want to learn something new, that has been further from the truth. They have been the ones that have been asking, how can they onboard to these tools? What can they do? How can they learn them? So we keep those innovation days. We recently have Tech Jam, and so we show them how we integrate everything together into a seamless solution for a CI pipeline. That's one of the things that we've been able to do. And we really put a lot of energy into our community of interest, because they are the brains. Those engineers are the ones that are going to be showing each other what they have learned. They go to their lunch, they give up their lunchtime. We get really good attendance at these lunch and learns, and people continue to come and they continue to be inspired because we have committed to keep going. And I think that's the most important.
They're also finding it meaningful, right? It's not a mandated thing. It's they're getting value out of it, and they realize they're getting an investment in themselves, in their skills, and their ability to perform.
I mean, right now, if you're in a lot of roles, technological roles, tech roles, knowledge roles, it used to always be sort of those kind of frontline roles, everyone worried about where technology is going to change, but you have to be like on the forefront of continuously educating yourself. I would love to get your take in this sort of leadership role on how is the sort of diffusion of information, or you call it the speed of innovation? Because, I mean, are you feeling that? Does your team feel it? Because I mean, if you're just watching the news cycle, let alone actually in it, and of course, like, how much is it sort of pushing everyone to get better?
Yeah, I think it's important. We also have a big focus on continuous learning and education. People often ask me after, those complete training, do you reward them? We don't reward them in that way, because the reward comes after they deliver, and we're encouraging people to be continuous learners. We want that mindset. And so I think that's definitely something that I practice. I often send things out to my team, and people know that that's like part of the expectation. It also helps them to develop their careers and continue to grow.
I love the idea that what we've been talking about here, we talk about modernization, we talk about technology. You absolutely brought the people into it, but the ongoing learning isn't just about the technology. It's how to get people engaged, excited, learning, and adapting. And it is all about that combination of the people and the technology.
Yeah, it's another great use case that sort of verifies, validates what we've seen over time, Greg. I mean, whether it's leading your org, me leading my organization in research, her leading her team of engineers, there's a combination of sort of enabling, finding people that are self-starting, that are driven to the mission.
Yep.
But at the same time, of course, it does move quick, change quick, and you do have to stay with it. I mean, we didn't even really touch on it. And maybe a final thought just here before we let you go, but is security on all of this, right? Like, in the industry you're in, the DevOps pipeline, the integration across mainframe and the entire IT enterprise stack, security has got to be a massive focal point. The rise of AI is only going to make it more of a focus. How are you thinking about that, tying all this together to make sure that you keep your customers' data safe?
Right. So we move our thinking from DevOps into DevSecOps. And so we have our security partners right there along with us to help us as we kind of build out how we make things more secure, how we kind of protect the engineers from themselves and put security first. That's pretty much our focus.
We definitely want TD protecting not just our data, but the money too.
Look, I mean, it's a really great conversation. We see, and you and I both know through the beginning of time of the main scoop, financial institutions, I mean, not only are our world and our lives so dependent upon them, but they are just such great testimonials and use cases of what the modern enterprise IT ecosystem looks like, and really an environment in which all this comes together to build and develop the future.
Thank you very much for being with us, Sheree.
Thank you.
Why don't you kind of summarize and bring us home, Daniel?
Yeah, so, as I see it, the future of IT, the future of financial institutions and banking has such a big and important role to play to make sure that we're able to modernize, take advantage of next generation infrastructure, but continue to implement and integrate with the existing infrastructure that's in place. I think these next generation diffusions of technology, that means especially AI, generative AI agents, they're going to continue to put a ton of pressure on our workforces. But at the same time, for users, they want these seamless, frictionless experiences. Like we said, you want to log in. I want to know where my money is. I want to know if I'm a business, what kind of tools and access I have. You want to know it's running, you want to know it's secure, and you want to know it's safe. And if you're in the industry, if you're an engineer, you're a technologist, you want to work for forward companies that are doing innovative stuff that continue to develop you, train you, and keep you relevant into the future. And I think what TD is doing, what Sheree shared, was really interesting. And
Absolutely. Having leaders like you and people and teams that are rising to the occasion gives me confidence for the future.
Great testament to the future and a great pair of boots, just in case anybody missed that. And they're hiring. And for everybody out there, I just want to say thank you so much for being part of this episode of The Main Scoop. Great conversation here. Subscribe, be part of our community, watch all of the great episodes here. We've had so many great guests. And if you stick around long enough, you can listen to Greg and I as well.
See you next time on the next Main Scoop.
We'll see you all soon.